In today's installment of In Retrospect, we're going to be looking at the album Deconstructing Nature by sakuraburst. The album was released April 14th, 2015, and is the first album released by sakuraburst. Sylvia is the woman behind the alias and has been creating music since 2014. I couldn't find much information on Sylvia's earlier years as a musician, as she's a relatively underground artist still, despite having released tracks with the likes of Shadient, Jospan, and Quenu, better known as Variant. Deconstructing Nature begins with the song Sunrise. The track begins with glitched sounds, before bringing in a low bass sound accompanied with an angelic bell sound. A Gregorian choir comes in along with an ocarina to provide additional melodic elements. The track begins to glitch and brings us into the final section, a harsh noise wall that glitches and becomes more and more distorted. Deconstructing Nature. The title track of the album begins with a strong bass, with vocals stating, more drum fills are presented, along with a flute. The drop consists of the metallic bass sound, mixed with various glitched sounding drums. The drum pattern is inconsistent, which gives the track a random feel. In the second part of the drop, a pseudo drum and bass loop is played, and the bass repeats. The drop fades, and we're left with a beautiful piano melody. The piano fades and the intro repeats itself.
Restoration at 48%.
The second drop is similar to the first, but with a variation on the bass patterns. The drop shifts into a minimal style, with only a low sub-bass playing with the glitched drums. In the outro of this track, the piano returns. Dreamfield. The last track mixes perfectly into this one, and begins with an ambient bass sound and accompanying pad. Some nature sounds are heard faintly in the background, but are overwhelmed by the bass pad. Some melodic elements join in. The bass fades out, and a noise wall begins to become more prevalent. Floating through a frozen Atlantis. The track begins with a chill two-step garage drum pattern, and soon brings in a bass to create a relaxing atmosphere. A piano comes in along with some pads to reinforce the theme of the track. These elements are reversed, and we're brought back to the two-step garage section. Along with these elements, a small vocal melody is heard. Everything cuts out, leaving just a piano, before everything comes back in. Interlude. The track consists of a sample from Game of Thrones Season 2, where the characters Yoren and Anya are talking.
Standing there.
Broadcast. This track is co-produced by Shadient and begins with a haunting vocal sample, telling the listener. Immediately, we go into a drop section. sakuraburst and Shadient use gritty metallic bass sounds to fill this drop, and use a 4-to-the-floor drum pattern to create an aggressive drop. The track transitions into an even more brutal section, where the basses become more and more distorted and glitched. The track breaks down, leaving us with a haunting synth that constantly rises in pitch. The next drop uses variations of the previous sounds, before switching to a halftime dubstep drop. The drop sounds broken, with samples repeating. The drop cuts out, leaving us with the intro vocal sample, pitching up, which builds tension. The drop begins pitching down the sample along with a snare build. The third drop uses the glitched metallic bass sounds and 4-to-the-floor beat to create another aggressive glitched drop. The track ends with a distorted and glitched out version of the vocal sample. Sky Shifter VIP. The track begins with an electric piano melody that sounds almost straight out of the game Minecraft. Another piano accompanies it, bringing in a new melody. The piano fades away, and a 170 BPM kick drum comes in. A new piano melody comes in. The song begins to build up tension with a bass sound and snares.
Far-off memory that's like a scattered dream.
The song then uses a sample from the opening of Kingdom Hearts 2, before dropping.
Yours and mine.
The drop uses a low-ended bass synth pluck and uses it to create a psytrance sounding groove. The drop fades out and then transitions into another piano section. The drop builds up again.
Yours and mine.
The second drop is very similar to the first, but with a slightly different bass pattern and accompanying piano.
And mine.
Serotonin. The track begins with distorted metallic bird sounds, then transitions into a chill neurobass section. Sakuraburst really shows off her incredible sound design skills here, and I find it amazing how such aggressive sounds can be tamed in a way to make them fit in this chill track. A piano melody is introduced. The second drop seems even more complex than the last, with the bass sounding almost like a liquid. To me, the song sounds like some sort of metallic organism making sounds. Data Corruption Symphony. The track begins with a distorted and glitched noise wall. We're then greeted by a flute and an ambient choir. The sounds become increasingly distorted and glitched, and sounds as if the song file were corrupted. A melody is then introduced, played by what sounds like a harp, but is actually a Windows PC sound. In fact, most of the instruments in this track are comprised of various Windows noises. The track begins an almost orchestral section, using various Windows sounds to create a soundscape. The track begins to corrupt again before bringing us into the build-up section. The noises used here are various mouse clicking sounds along with the harp we heard earlier. The drop is comprised of a sped-up harp melody along with a loud sub-bass. More aggressive sounds come in, and the drop fades, leaving only just the harp. The drums glitch out, then comes the real drop. Sakuraburst uses her most aggressive bass noises here, along with a drum pattern to match it. The drums then go halftime, giving the drop a more dubstep feel, even though it's much more glitched and aggressive than most dubstep. The drop builds up, then leaves us with more ambient noises. The track ends with a beautiful harp section that becomes slower and slower as time goes on. Cherry blossoms explode across the dying horizon. The song begins with another harp playing a simple melody, and is soon joined in by a synth pad that sounds straight out of a Zelda game or a Miyazaki film. The sound becomes corrupted for a moment before bringing us the full medley. The song again glitches out before bringing us this. Holy crap, this sounds so epic. Like, the glitching sounds really add to the incredible atmosphere this track gives. The track builds up subtly with a piano and drums. The drop is just a mess of sounds and drums, and I mean a mess in the best way possible. The drop is able to combine all these sounds in a coherent way. No two sounds sound alike, which gives this drop so much energy. Intercut with this mayhem is the original melody. The drop fades and brings us back into the piano section. The song changes tone, introducing a flute and new instruments. Another melody comes in, with hints of the original, but slightly changed to give more variation. More musical elements come in to reinforce the melody and drums. The next build-up is very drum and bass, and uses a gritty bass sound to help build tension and hint at what is to come. This drop is insane. Sakuraburst creates a new drum pattern that sounds like a completely different tempo, with a different aggressive sound on each beat. Sakuraburst then introduces elements from previous songs within this drop. We've come full circle. The drop fades and leaves us with a soft melody. The elements become more distorted, then fade out. And with that, the album is over. Okay, like, there are 3 remixes on this album as well, but I'm just gonna kind of ignore them so we can just focus on Sakuraburst. I feel like this album helped to reinvent the genre industrial, and helped to inspire artists such as 1788L, Porter Robinson, and Rez. With songs like Deconstructing Nature, Broadcast, Data Corruption Symphony, and Cherry Blossoms Explode Across the Dying Horizon, Sakuraburst shows us that she can create aggressive drops with unstable drum patterns. Along with this, Sakuraburst's incredible sound design skills are shown off, especially in Floating Through a Frozen Atlantis, Broadcast, and Data Corruption Symphony. This album hasn't won any major awards, and Sakuraburst doesn't even have a Wikipedia page, yet this album has been an inspiration for many. I think that if this album were released today, it would partially hold up in today's production standards. I think that the sounds created in this album are insane, and Sakuraburst is incredibly talented, but some of the songs are not mixed as well as they could be, which is understandable as this is her first album. Sakuraburst's newer albums really show how talented she is, and are a great example of her talent as a producer, but being the first album, it's a bit immature. Overall, I think that this album is a milestone in the history of new industrial and mid-tempo tech styled music. Sakuraburst deserves more followers, and you guys should go follow her right now. Yeah, bye.